In this movie, we'll make sure that you have a correct version of Ruby installed, and if not, I'll help you get it up to date. Now, Ruby on Rails 3 is going to require that we have Ruby 1.8.7 or greater. That's the requirement. Now, there are newer versions of Ruby. In fact, Ruby 1.9.2 just came out about a month before Rails 3 came out. And 1.9.2 or higher is preferred, largely because it's faster. It's got a lot of feature improvements in there that allow it to be faster. But you want to make sure you don't use 191. And that's unlikely now that 192 is out and official. But just so you know, 191 did have a few bugs in it that caused problems when working with Rails. The most important thing, though, is that we have 1.8.7 or later. Now, we'll check which one you have installed in just a moment. But if you need to install it, there are a couple of options. The first is that you can install macOS 10.6 Snow Leopard because it includes Ruby 1.8.7. So if you've got a very recent Mac and you bought it, came pre-installed with 10.6, then you're fine. You should have Ruby 1.8.7 already installed. Now, besides upgrading to 10.6, your other option is go to the Ruby website, which is ruby-lang.org. And that's the main place where we can go to download Ruby and get it installed. So here I am on the Ruby Lang website, and there's a link here for downloads that will help me to get downloaded. Ruby source code. What we want to do is scroll down. There's sections for different operating systems, and we want to scroll down until we get to the one on Ruby on OS 10. So this gives us the ways that we can get it installed on OS 10. One that's very popular is Mac Ports. So if you've been using Mac Ports, it's a package manager that helps you to install software. You can go ahead and use that. If you don't have it, you would need to install Mac Ports and learn how to use that package manager first. But that's a very popular way to do it. And they go ahead and even tell you how easy it is. Once you have Mac Ports installed, you just say port install Ruby. It's nice and easy. But another way to do it that's not that much harder is to follow these guides down here. It gives you links for Tiger, Leopard, and Snow Leopard guides that Dan Benjamin has put together that are really excellent for actually how to install these from source. So you can click on any of those links and follow those guides to get everything installed. And it'll match with everything else that we've been doing. Now, to find out which version we have, let's go into our terminal application. And in terminal, we'll type ruby-v. So we're going to ask the Ruby program to tell us what version it has. 1.8.7 is what I have installed. That's fine. That's going to work. I'm not going to install anything else. I'm just going to leave it at that. Again, 192 would be faster, but I'll be using 1.8.7 for this tutorial just so that we don't need to install anything else. Now, I also want to show you that, like we talked about before, you can type which Ruby, and it'll tell you where that version of Ruby is located. Now, if you were to install it using Mac Ports or Dan Benjamin's guide, then it might be installed in a different place. In fact, we could have more than one version installed. We would still have the default version that Apple gave us, and we could have one of these other versions instead. Remember that in the terminal and Unix setting movie, we set a path that determines which one of those gets picked first. So you just want to pay attention to that if you do one of those other installs. Now, we can make sure that Ruby is installed, a couple of easy ways. Ruby-E, and then in quotes, we can put a simple Ruby command, puts 100, and it'll just output 100 to us. That's just a real simple way to run a single command in Ruby and make sure that Ruby is running. We also have IRB, which is a Ruby calculator, interactive Ruby. It drops us into a Ruby shell and lets us do things like puts 1 plus 1. It works a lot like a calculator. We can just type quit whenever we want to get out of that. So now we know we have Ruby installed and working. We have Ruby 1.8.7. We're able to run Ruby commands, and IRB was included with Ruby so that we can drop into that shell and try things out. So once we have Ruby working, now we're ready to move on and install Ruby gems.